Apologies to be a couple of minutes late. I had a slight emergency. Excellent. That means you can hear me. Is that right? Yay! It works. Last night it didn't work. It was awful. Good. So, welcome. There's just the three of us. Wow. So, where are you both? Where are you based, Magda? And where are you based, Cher? Is that the right pronunciation, Cher, or is it Cher? Ah. Brixton, nice. Surrey Hills. Where are the Surrey Hills? I've heard this expression, but I don't know where it is. Oxted. Oh, okay. Nice. North Downs sort of way. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Nice area. I'm sort of midway between the two of you. I'm in Worcester Park, if you know where that is. So we're either in a straight line or a very flat triangle. Yes, indeed. And seafood restaurant at Squirrys, which I keep meaning and wanting to go to. Is it good? Good. Excellent. Wonderful. Lovely. Nice part of the world. I was in Godstone just the other day. Very, very nice. Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. It's the beginning of Okay. So it's the beginning of our tour of Spain. We've got a 6-week tour of Spain, which I think is the most exciting wine producing country in the world. Spain is just such an incredibly varied country. It's my spiritual home. I'm not Spanish in the slightest, but that's where I feel at home. When I was a boy, there was a marketing campaign for tourism in Spain, and they had all these wonderful bits of film of the incredible variety of Spain. And the thing at the end, it said, Spain, the last thing we want is for you to feel at home. And I thought that was brilliant, and it's stuck with me ever since, because it is a country of incredible variety in everything. And yet a lot of Brits have a single view of it from a cultural point of view. They think of it as beaches and flamenco and paella, all things I like, but there's a lot more to Spain than that. And wine-wise, they all think it's Rioja. And the truth is very different. It's an incredibly varied place in every regard. So let's start taking a look at it. Okay. What makes it so exciting is that you've got lots of indigenous grapes. The most interesting wines in Spain are made from Spanish indigenous grapes. They do like to use international grapes as well, which by and large are wines I avoid. They also use grape varieties that have left Spain and taken on an international identity. So people don't realize that those grape varieties are originally Spanish. And I'll mention those as we go through. One of the things that makes Spain really exciting is that although it's the country with the largest area under vine, it is normally only the third largest wine producing country in the world. Okay. And I say normally because a few years ago, was it 2016? It was actually the largest wine producing country for that year, because there was bad conditions. It can't have been 16, it must have been 17. There were bad conditions in France and Italy, but not in Spain. So France and Italy lost crop, which are usually 1 and 2, and Spain snuck up and took the prize. And last year, Spain was, what am I talking about? This year, Spain gets the second spot because France has had its problems. Terrible vintage, certainly as far as quantity is concerned. And so Italy's number 1 and Spain's number 2. But generally speaking, it goes France, Italy, Spain in terms of quantity, generally. Okay. Once China hits the lists, who knows what will happen? Who knows? China will certainly be in the top 3 very soon, if not the top spot. Okay. Now, I've forgotten to get the red wine, so I'm going to have to do that. Bear with me just a moment, would you? That was silly of me. I got the white out of the fridge, but completely failed to get the red. Okay. And another thing that I find really wonderful about Spain, Portugal too, by the way, is that you get very, very good value. The price to quality ratio is very high indeed. Even at the top end, you seldom pay French or Italian top end wine prices. You know, you'll get some of the greatest Rioja there is for £50. Well, you know, you don't get some of the greatest Bordeaux there is for £50, that's for sure. Or indeed Barolo and things like that. So there is good value. And there are incredibly cheap wines in Spain as well. My father lived in Spain. My brother does live in Spain. We've had a house there all my life, my family. And my father would never spend more than 90 cents on a bottle of wine. He only died 3 years ago. He just wouldn't spend more than 90 cents. Suffice to say, I didn't drink his wine. I spent €5. He thought I was made of money. Someone's typing. That's good. I know. Crazy. I know. In Portugal, you get quite decent wine for 90 cents, by the way. There are some famous regions. Obviously, there's Rioja, there's Cava, and there's Sherry. But apart from that, I think most of Spain's wine regions are a little bit hidden to most people. But there's lots of good wines. Okay. So it is La Lama, Ribeira Sacra. Okay. because we're doing northwest Spain tonight. And the white is the Albarino, as I'm sure you know. I hope you do. Right. Okay. And I think Spain has got so much to offer. I think there's such exciting wine regions there. So I've put two categories here for you to have a little look at. And obviously I'll talk about these much more as we go through over the weeks. So I think these are regions that some people will know about, but they're not as famous as Rioja and Cava and Sherry. But they do produce great, great wines. And I'm not talking cheap wines here either. But I think Priorat, one of the great wine regions of the world, Navarra, an incredibly underrated wine region. Ribera del Duero is both sort of not as famous as it ought to be and overrated at the same time. So I know that's slightly weird. Penedès is interesting, which we'll talk about when we get to Catalonia. And Ries Baixas. I'm not going to say it's unknown in the UK, but it doesn't get treated as the classy wine region it really is. We're coming on to that tonight. And then there's a whole raft of fantastic up-and-coming places that are worthy of anyone's consideration. Montsant, Bierzo, Costas del Segre, Jumilla, Terra Alta, Rueda, plenty of others. But they're just the ones that sort of struck my mind as we were as I was putting the presentation together. Here's a statistic for you. There are 138 identifiable wine regions in Spain. 138. So we are only scratching the surface. Okay. As I've mentioned already, it has the most land under vine, 1 million hectares. Okay. So the most vine growing of any country on earth at the moment. But it's usually only the third largest wine producing country. And yes, yeah, I'm excited too. We've got some lovely wines. And unusually nowadays, it's a wine drinking country too. So many countries, wine drinking is a sort of very modest sport, if you like. But Spain is the 6th largest wine consuming country, and you do see wine being drunk everywhere, which gladdens the heart. Well, there we are, 69 weeks together. That would be great. But this is what I find annoying. Cava and Rioja account for 38% of exports. So it's almost all, well, there we are, Cher, yeah. It's almost all anyone knows. And there's so much more, much as I love Cava and I love Rioja. There's a saying in Spain that there are only 3 wines. And that is Rioja, Cava, and the wine of your village. So distribution is an interesting thing in Spain. You're very unlikely to find wine from all over the place, other than Rioja, Cava, and nowadays Rías Baixas as well. So people do drink local. And yes, Cher, Cava is one of the most underrated wines there is, in my opinion. I am a big fan of Cava. I'm evangelical about Cava. So yes, we've got that to look forward to. I think Cava is vastly underrated. Even cheap Cava can be quite underrated. Okay, not always, of course. So, Spain's big. It's a big old country. So the size, the location, and the terrain all make it incredibly diverse in climatic conditions. So you've got three basic climatic zones. You've got the Mediterranean climate all around the Mediterranean coast, and indeed that little bit of the Atlantic coast as well. So, we all know what a Mediterranean climate is, don't we? Hot summers, moderate winters. Then all of the inland area, you've got continental climates, and continental climates have extreme winters and summers, and you'll see that as we go through. And then, much to many people's surprise, you've actually got in the northwest, you've got the Atlantic influenced regions. So there you get a maritime climate. And so that is quite different from the rest of Spain, much, much cooler. And so up here, it's relatively unusual to get red wines. And if you do get red wines, they're usually on the light side. Okay. In the Canaries, broadly speaking, you have a subtropical climate. But of course, you've also got a lot of tempering from the Atlantic, which we'll discuss when we get there. These maps, by the way, are maps that I've created for the Wine Scholar Guild Spanish Wine Scholar. So I have the right to use them because I drew them. Okay. And it always amuses me that Spain is the third most mountainous country in Europe. Don't ask me. I've forgotten what the two above it are. Presumably Switzerland and Italy. And Madrid, slap bang in the middle of the Iberian Peninsula, is the highest capital in Europe other than Andorra la Vella, there in the Pyrenees. Okay, that's a good question for when you're on Pointless. And you can just see at a glance how mountainous the country is. There's very little flat land in Spain, very little. A bit around the edge, a little bit down here in Andalusia, a bit in the Ebro Valley, and that's almost it. My house is about there, if you're interested. Okay. So I'll show you a wine map of Spain. There's a lot going on in a wine map of Spain. A lot. So this is all the posh regions. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. So you can see it's absolutely covered in wine regions, appellations, if you want to call them that. In Europe, we call them PDOs, protected denomination of origin. Okay. Just turning my phone off so that you don't get to hear it if somebody rings me. And one of the things that's interesting about it being quite a hot place, most of it is hot and dry, continental climate all in there, Mediterranean climate around there, is that it's the largest organic wine. Oh, you don't see the pointer. That's weird. How's that? Good. And what was I talking about that you didn't see? Oh, my house. Not the most important thing. It's there, just at the tip there. Oh, well. And oh yeah, so it's the largest percentage. Spain's the largest organic wine producer in the world because of those warm, dry conditions. Okay, so the basics. This is what you have in Spain as far as the legal aspects of wine labelling are concerned. It follows the same pattern as every other EU wine producing country, okay? But there's a few little foibles. Right at the bottom of the quality pyramid, there you are, that's the pyramid. Right at the bottom, you've got Vino de España, and that would be the principal piece of information on the label. That can come from anywhere. No origin is stated other than Spain. And it can be blended across different regions. Okay? You don't really see those. They do exist, but you don't see them really. And then you've got the PGI level wines, or Protected Geographical Indication. This is an official EU category. So is this, by the way. And in France, these wines are called Vin de Pays. In Spain, they are called Vino de la Tierra, wine of the land. And generally speaking, Vino de la Tierra cover quite large areas, like Vin de Pays do in France. And then we have the legal category of PDO, or Protected Designation of Origin. Okay, these are what the French call Appellation Contrôlée, or the Italians call Denominazione di Origine Controllata. The Spanish call them Denominación de Origen, or DO. Okay, so you'll see that on most wine labels. If you look at your bottles tonight, you'll see Ribera Sacra, Denominación de Origen on the label, and Do Rías Baixas on the white. But in Spain, they also have a few areas, regions, that aspire to be DOs. They're already officially PDOs. Sorry if this is confusing. But they're not yet DOs in Spanish terms. These are called Vinos de Calidad con Indicación Geográfica. I think there are 5 of them. Let's have a look at them on my map. Not that map. That map. So we've got Vino de Calidad Granada. We've got Vino de Calidad of Valtiendas up there. Valles de Benavent up there. Sierra de Salamanca there. And Cebreros there. Okay. And the very strange one, Lebrija there. So we'll mention some of those as we go through. Those are one day going to be DOs, probably quite soon. Now, Spain, like Italy, has promoted 2 of its DOs to a higher level. And Italy's promoted a lot. Spain's only promoted 2. And these are called DOCA, or Denominación de Origen Calificada. There are only 2 of them. which is DOCA Rioja. And then the other one is often written in Catalan, but it means the same thing, DOQ Priorat. Okay. Can I be really annoying again? Every time I do a wine tasting, I get the urge to blow my nose. So I'm going to go over there and blow my nose. I'm sorry. You're going to think I'm mad. Good. So those are the top tier PDOs. They're still legally PDOs, but the Spanish separate them out. And then there's an interesting category here, which is called Vino de Pago, or VP. And in theory, these are not superior. I put them at the top of the pyramid or triangle, but in theory, that's not really where they are. They are really just PDOs, but they cover single estates. If I go back to my map here, all the little red circles and numbers are these Vino de Pago. Pago means estate, so they're wines from a single estate, which historically is quite rare in Spain. Spanish wine has traditionally been a blended product. And in sort of the last 30, 40 years, the single estate movement has really gained traction in Spain, particularly in wine regions that don't really have a high reputation. So the producers of really high quality wine in these places would rather that the reputation of their wine wasn't dragged down by the sort of basic reputation for the area as a whole. This is a case in point. This huge area here is Castilla-La Mancha. And Castilla-La Mancha makes, it's widely regarded as a place that makes everyday wine. But there are a whole load of producers within it and on its extremities that focus on quality wine. So what they've done is built a reputation for their wines and left the local DO. And after a few years, they've managed to get given their own DO. So their DO covers just their estate. So they are Vinos de Pago. That's what they are. And currently, there are, I think there's 21 now. This map is slightly out of date. I only had a discussion today with someone about how I've got to find a place to put the other two. One was promoted last week, so there we are. Or awarded, rather. That's the accurate saying. Okay, any questions so far? Oh, well, we're together a long time. You can always ask again. Okay. So, first of all, we are going to look at northern Spain, northwest Spain. Okay, that's our topic for tonight. It's one of my favorite areas, actually. It's just fabulous. We call it Green Spain, and we call it Green Spain for a very good reason. It's wet. Okay, so it's a lush part of the country, and as I said earlier, it's quite difficult for them to make red wines. So the red wines up here do not follow the normal Spanish wine pattern. And there's interesting stuff all along here. Galicia, the far west, is the really important wine region. But there's very, very interesting things down here in the País Vasco. Has anyone been to the País Vasco? Well, do you like food? Oh, you have, Magda. Where have you been? Bilbao and San Sebastian. Okay. Well, I mean, oh, wow. I haven't been to Cantabria for a long time. Cantabria, sorry. I love the Basque Country. San Sebastian is just one of the best places on earth, in my humble opinion, to go as a foodie adult. Bilbao's very nice too. I like Bilbao, and I like lots of the villages along that coast. So this is the País Vasco, and it's got 3 DOs within it. Oh, well, you've got to go back. It's like Magaluf for grown-ups who like food. The gin, yes. The highest percentage of, the highest number of, the highest percentage of Michelin star restaurants in the world, given its size, in San Sebastian. Does the Pope pray? But I'm more about the bars. The bars in San Sebastian are just amazing. I'll show you some pictures later. And I want to go back. So there are 3 DOs. My Basque pronunciation is not good. Getariaco Chacolina, Bizkaiko Chacolina, and Arabaco Chacolina. Sounds like coffee, doesn't it? And these produce a wine that we call, they produce 3 wines. We call them all Chacoli. In Spanish, or in Castellano, it's often spelt that way, but the TX is the proper way of spelling it. Chacoli. And most Chacoli is just brilliant, I think. Here's a few photographs of the País Vasco for you. There's the flag, which is based on the Union flag. This is San Sebastian, and the old town is there. And this is La Concha Beach, right in the middle of the city. It's fabulous. There's an old hotel there called the Londres y Inglaterra, and one of the best gin bars I've ever been to, just sitting there looking out onto the beach there. And this is the beginning of the old town. See that statue is there. So you're looking that way, just there on the seashore. It's absolutely glorious place. But me being a greedy so-and-so, this is what I like about it. You've got these things which are, they're tapas, but that's not what they call them. They call them pinchos. And basically you just take a plate and you take one of the tapas, one of the pinchos, and you pay by the number of sticks you've got at the end. And some of them are just brilliant, really brilliant. And some bars specialize in a specific range of them as well. So somewhere, if you ask me nicely sometime, I've got a list of pinchos bars in San Sebastian and their speciality pincho as well. Seafood is amazing up there. There's big fishing fleets in the Bay of Biscay, and all the little villages along the shore. There's Guettaria there, which gives its name to this DO, by the way. And that's a beautiful fishing village. You go there on a Sunday and you can't get into the village because everyone's there for Sunday lunch in the fish restaurants, which are amazing. But, crab like that is just everywhere. But they do like their meat as well. And they have a big thing about barbecued steak like this. And they do, they use dairy cows. I don't know if you saw that program, Amazing Places to Eat with Fred Sirius. There was an edition. No, I would recommend it. It's very interesting, and there is one episode in San Sebastian, and they go to this place that does barbecued steak, and it just looks amazing. But you get them everywhere, so and that's what you're going to drink Rioja with, not Chacoli. So here we are. These are the Chacolis. So San Sebastian, Bilbao. Down here, you've got Rioja. There's Logroño. There's a little bit of Rioja in the País Vasco called Rioja Alavesa, but we'll talk about that when we deal with Rioja. Okay. So Chacoli until the 1980s was just made by local people for themselves and their friends, and I dread to think what it was like. But a couple of people, particularly Chomin, which is one of the top producers. There we are. You'll never regret trying a bottle of their wine. Decided to invest in making good wine, and they are based in the village I mentioned earlier called Guettaria. There it is. Pincho Bar, the streets, just lovely. And their vineyards look right out over the sea. The village of Guettaria is just there. This is Chomin, actually. All the producers of Chacoli are small, family-owned estates, and some of them that a bit of the Camino de Santiago goes through as well. And Chomin were the first people to invest in a winery like that. That is their winery. All squeaky clean stainless steel. Okay. And so they suddenly started making these bright, fresh white wines, and all the characters of the place suddenly appeared in these wines. And I expect before they started doing that, the wines were a bit flabby and, not very interesting, not very clean. And the two great varieties that they use, principally Hondurabi Zuri, the white one, and Hondurabi Belzer as well. Most wines are a blend of the two. That's a black grape. And almost all the production is white wine, okay? And they're very light white wines with low alcohol as well. Just 1% production is red. Nowadays, they make some Rosado, rosé as well, but that's not a traditional thing, but they're very good. And there's a little bit of sparkling, and I think Rosado and sparkling are both going to increase as well. And the wines have, it's a pity I'm not showing you one, they have just an incredible depth of flavor, but a real lightness about them as well, which makes them, I think, really delicious. And, wow, excellent. What's the producer? Amatsoy. That one? Yay! That's the other great one. Chomin and Amatsoi. They are fantastic. To get the full effect, you need the white, because they are really bracing. They're like breathing in sea air. They're very high acid, and they're slightly salty and mineral, but they are utterly, utterly delicious. And what you're supposed to do is to drink it out of tumblers, and you put an aerator in the bottle, and you pour it from a great height, and that puts some fizz in, okay? And oh, they're so good. They're so good. This is all San Sebastian, or Donostia, as the locals call it. These are photographs I took. So that's a little Pinchos bar in the back streets. That's a more posh Pincho bar. And look, pretty much all of those signs are bars. Okay? So you wander around the old town and bar, 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 bar. And if you're on the wrong day at the wrong time of year, you can't get in them. They are, so heaving, but wonderful. We went a few years ago. We spent 4 nights in San Sebastian. Our 2 sons were just adult, the late teens, early 20s by then, and we hadn't been away with them since they'd become grown up. And we were wandering through San Sebastian the first day, and we went into the food market, which is brilliant. And that's a good half a day enjoying walking around there. And in each corner there's a bar, and I think there's a bar in the middle as well. And about 11 o'clock in the morning, I said, "Shall we have a drink?" And I meant, I don't know, Coke or something. And everyone said yes. And my youngest son said, "Shall we have some wine?" And I thought, we're on holiday. So I said, "How much? We'll have 4 glasses of Chacoli." And he opened a bottle and went to pour it. And I said, "How much?" And he said, "I don't know, €2 a glass." And I said, "How much for the bottle?" And that was $4.50. So I said, "Oh, we'll have a bottle." And from 11 o'clock in the morning until about 2 in the morning when we went to bed, the 4 of us got through 9 bottles of Chacoli and 2 gin and tonics each. So it's quite a good day. But it's only 11% alcohol, so almost nothing. Quite a good day indeed. And you're not supposed to, when you pour it, you line the glasses up and you just do that with the bottle. You don't, you just splosh it everywhere. And we went on a boat trip round the bay, and the guy on the boat was selling bottles of Chacoli. So I lined up the glasses and I was sloshing it everywhere because the boat was doing that. Either that, or it was because we were on our 7th bottle by then. That may have been the reason. The boat might have been like that, and I wasn't. Who knows? I wish I was there now. Although I do like talking to you. It's all very nice. Okay. So the most famous is this one, Gheteracchio Chacolina, named after the beautiful village of Gheteria. That's the lightest, freshest style. Then you've also got Bizkaiko Chacolina, which is around Bilbao. They've recently enlarged the areas. It used to be quite small, but they've covered the whole area with it now. So that's Biscay, you see, that's what that means, as in the Bay of. This is a little warmer, a little drier. The wines are a little bit rounder and richer. And you do see some that even have Riesling in here. And the producer I would recommend above all is Itzas Mendy. He makes Itzas Mendy 7. It's got 7 grapes in it, including a good old slug of Riesling. It's really good. I mean, really good. I forgot to show you who I recommended here, because I didn't say, because I was going to say Chomin and Amatsoy. You now know. Yeah, good. Sorry about that. Yep, so we've just been there. Arabico is slightly different. It's sort of a chunk out of the Bilbao area, not far from Vitoria. This is the only one that's inland, and it's drier, and it's a richer style. And you don't see the wine so often. I've had all of these though, and they're all very good. So if you ever get a chance, if you're up there, drink them. The other thing that they have around here, the whole coast actually, as you know, is cider. And the hills around San Sebastian and Bilbao are full of cider houses. And you go there and have this fantastic cider, which is not unlike Chacolí, it has to be admitted, and amazing food as well. So I would recommend that incredibly. Okay. Any questions about the País Vasco? Or the País Vasco, really? No? Oh, and you can always go back to them if you want. Asturias and Cantabria are historically not really wine country. They make sort of basic wine for local people. There is historically some Chacolí produced in Cantabria, but it's sort of disappeared. So it's hard to pin down. It's slightly on the up. You've got Vino de la Tierra Costa de Cantabria, covering most of the coastal zone, and Vino de la Tierra Liabana, inland there. And in Asturias, which is even less wine country, you've got Vino de Calidad Cangas, which is very up and coming. Very expensive wines, quite like what we're going to discuss in Galicia. And these are more like what we've just discussed in the País Vasco. Okay. But these are really only wines you'd have there. I haven't been there for a long, long time, but you know, the seafood culture in Santander is fantastic. And Asturias, I've been through it once and it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But most of the restaurants will offer you Rioja and Galician wine rather than local. Sad, but there we are. Okay. So now let's move on to the main event of tonight, which is Galicia. And Galicia is a magical place. It really is. It's a Gaelic culture. There's ruins of round houses on the coast near Pontevedra. That's the flag. Galicia is one of the 17 autonomous regions of Spain, as is Asturias, Cantabria, and the País Vasco. Okay. That's the city square in Vigo. Rather lovely. It's a great place to visit for almost every reason. So you've got the Camino de Santiago. There's the scallop shell symbol. On the northern coast, you've got this place called Playa de las Catedrales, Beach of the Cathedrals, because it's got these amazing stone formations that are said to resemble cathedrals. And of course, at the end of the Camino de Santiago, you've got the cathedral in Santiago, which is one of my favorite Spanish cities. I love Spanish cities, and Santiago is amazing. Anyone been? No? Oh, neither of you have done a Camino. Yes. Yeah. Last time I was in Rioja before COVID. My hotel was right on. Yeah, I'd love to do it actually. My hotel was right on the main road going through Logroño. It's not a big road, but it is the main road. And I was standing on my balcony at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and looking out without moving my head. I counted 24 pilgrims walking down the road. So it's quite a thing, the Camino. And it ends at Santiago Cathedral. And there's the main road of Santiago goes up to it. It's a narrow road. It's probably no wider than my office here, cobbled street, but it's just lined with bars. And all of them are fantastic. And there's more of those Celtic ruins as well. It's a great part of the world. And I'm very shallow. I like culture, but hey, I like cuisine more. You get great seafood in Galicia. Really, really good everywhere. The locals love octopus. They absolutely adore it. Last time I was there, I was in a big group of people, and we were wine tasting all day, and we were usually out and about for lunch, and they brought caterers to us. And one day it was going to be octopus. This mobile octopus cook came along, and they boil it. They don't do anything fancy with it. They just boil it and then sprinkle paprika on it. And the excitement, genuinely, I'm not making this up, amongst the Galicians was almost palpable. And they were just, pulpo, pulpo, pulpo's octopus. Oh, bueno, bueno, bueno. Oh, and they were so excited about the idea of having octopus. I don't mind it. I don't seek it out. But hey ho. I do like these. These are empanadas, and you have empanadas or empanadillas, which are the little crescent-shaped ones, all over Spain. But the classic comes from Galicia, empanada de Galicia, and it's got tuna and onion and pepper in it. Where my house is, it's often got peas in it, which sounds awful, but is delicious. And here's a few things. These are incredibly trendy nowadays. And what are they? No, there we are. Padron peppers, pimientos de Padron. And Padron is a place, and it's near Vigo. Well, no, actually, it's near Pontevedra, and I'll show you where that is on the map. And it's where Martin Sheen's family are from. Wonderful. And if you haven't had them, yeah, you can. And some of them are supposed to be hot. So it's like Russian roulette. I've never had a proper hot one, so I'm not sure they are, but there they are. Does anyone know what these are? Oh, only happened to you once. Okay. Is it nice? It's an excuse for another drink, isn't it? So do you know what these are? Yeah. Yes. Okay. They're called percebes, and they are gooseneck barnacles. I dislike them intensely. No, that's not true. I don't see the point in eating them. They taste of seawater and gristle. So I'm not a fan personally. I can tolerate them if I have to, but luckily I don't. I don't have to. I like this, sadly. This is Tata de Santiago, and it's a real speciality of the city of Santiago de Compostela. And it's a ground almond tart. It's fantastic. So yeah, it really is. Really is. Okay, so let's look at Galicia from a wine point of view. Galicia has 5 denominación de origen. We're going to be tasting 2, but talking about them all. It also has some vino de las tierras. I think they're for local interest, really, nothing else. As you might imagine, it's got a maritime climate. It's pretty wet. It's amongst the wettest bits of Europe. Okay, there's A Coruña. There's what used to be called El Ferrol, which is now just Ferrol up there. You've got Vigo all the way down here. Pontevedra, which is one of the main wine towns there. And I'm pretty sure, did I put, oh yeah, I did put Padron on the map. There it is. There. Okay. And the border with Spain is right here. And it's the Miño River there, which then flows up. It's a great place. So Galicia produces overwhelmingly aromatic white wines and some light reds, but the reds are more inland. So the coastal zones don't really produce red, but once you get further inland, you do tend to. Albarino is by far and away the most important grape. It's also grown over the border in Portugal, where they call it this. And 2 other white grapes, which are really nice, are Godello and Treixadeira. And we'll talk about all of those. And the dominant black grape for red wines is called Mencía. And we'll definitely be talking about that quite soon. So let's pull in on Rias Baixas. It's very Portuguese, the pronunciation around here, by the way. Galician or Galau is very, very similar to Portuguese. Very hard to tell them apart. Now, Rias Baixas does contain 5 subzones. Only nerds need to know about that, to be honest, because they almost never appear on the label. The wine we've got tonight is from just one of the subzones, but they're not going to say it. Do you like the back label, by the way? If you turn it round, it says Lagar de Pintos, Albarino, Rias Baixas, Denominación de Orish. That's in Galician, Orish, which is quite fun. Our wine comes from the Valdes Salmes. Now, where was it? Very near Pontevedra. I did look it up on the map earlier. It's roughly there. Roughly there. And this Val de Salnes is where Albarino is supposed to come from, and it's 50% of the production. So it's very, very important, very important. A bit like Chacoli, the wines were really unheard of before the 80s, and it's a very similar story to Chacoli, where one producer invested in stainless steel and started producing bright wines that people liked, whereas before that it had just been for the local people, for the fishermen and the peasants to drink in the bars. And the same thing happened here. There's a cooperative producer called Martin Kodak's, and they produce a lot of Rio Spacious wine, and they're the biggest producer. They're just about the only bulk producer there, and being a cooperative, they represent a few villages, and so they had money compared to other producers, and so what they did was invest in. They obviously had someone very, very open-minded, and they bought in stainless steel tanks and made a really hygienic modern winery. And they took this grape, which historically had just oxidized and produced horrible flabby wines, and they treated it in a very modern way with no oxygen getting to it. And they produced bright wines, fresh and delicious. And people, the Spanish in particular, fell in love with the wines like that. And now Spain has traditionally been a red wine drinking country. And you don't see much white wine around, but you get huge arrays of Rio Spacious wines in Spanish supermarkets now. They are so popular. So lots of rainfall, maritime climate. It's almost all white. There's 1% is red. If there's any rosé produced, I've never seen it. And the signature grape by far and away is Albarino. And you can get Rio Spacious wines produced from other grape varieties, but when you do a blend, you can't put Albarino on the label, and that sells. So the great majority of them are pure Albarino. But if they don't have a grape variety on the label, they're made from blends of Loreiro, Treixadura, Caño Blanco, and Albarino. And they can be lovely wines. They really can. There's a guy, the top producer of blends is Santiago Ruiz, which is really good stuff. Well, shall we taste our wine? You've been very patient. So 2019 Lagar de Pintos Albarino. Okay. I love Albarino, and I've come to like it even more of late. I think somebody's turned a tap and made the wine so good. I always used to say that they weren't very reliable. They were capable of great things, but they weren't always. And there are still commercial versions. Good. I'm glad to hear it. That taste like white wine. But proper Albarinos do not taste like white wine. They taste like Albarino and Rio Spacious. And there should be a purity to them. The colour's interesting. Because of the Gulf Stream, the grapes can get pretty ripe here. They can ripen pineapples here, even though it's generally cool and wet. In the growing season, they get enough heat. So you do get that little touch of colour to the wine. Floater in mine, never mind. But what it gets interesting when you smell it. Do I take it you've done wine courses before? Good, good, excellent. So stick your nose in, basically. And I think Albarino is one of the easiest wines to recognize blind. If you get a whiff of sea air and sea water and grapefruit, then you are really looking at Albarino. And I think that's lovely. It's sort of got this breezy note to it, sea air, absolutely. It's quite lifted and aromatic. Yeah, there's a bit of floral stuff going on. In this wine, just a little bit of peach and apricot. Some of them, that's more to the fore, and the sea air is less. But it's the grapefruit and the salty minerality that really excites me. By the way, look how they grow Albarino. Because it's such a wet place, there's not really any wood around, although there's trees there, but there's not very much. So they have these pillars made out of stone, and it is my brain's gone absolutely blank. Granite. I knew that. For some reason my brain was saying limestone and I knew it was wrong. So it's free draining sand and granite, and they make these posts out of the local granite, and they keep the vines high so that they're away from the damp, humid earth. And also, of course, these wines were historically made by peasants, and so you could grow other things and farm animals underneath as well. So you've got to pick like that, which is quite exciting, isn't it? And so it's very well draining soil, so you can get good concentration in wines and yet still keep them light and fresh, which I like very much. This particular example, and most of the good ones are the same, there's a little bit of a curd, very light cheesy note, and that is Lees aging. Yes, it's all stainless steel with some Lees. It's a really nice estate, actually. It's been in the same family since, what did they say, 1878. Goodness knows what they were producing. No, 1887. Got my numbers the wrong way around. And goodness knows what they were producing back there. It's only 5.5 hectares, so it's not a big estate, and it's run by two sisters. And the 5.5 hectares are not joined together. They've got, I think it's 7 plots dotted around, all with different aspects and things. Female winemakers are always the best, always the best. How long on the Lees is about 6 months. Yeah, that's what it is. The Lees gives it that weight. It's becoming much more normal. Winemakers there have become more ambitious, and this gives complexity without giving oak to, so you keep the freshness and the brightness. I just love the nose. It's wonderful. And then give it a taste. There's a silky texture there. That will come from the Lees aging and a little bit from the ripeness, but mainly the Lees. And it gives that density in the mouth. Lovely fruit concentration. So it sits there quite powerfully, but it's all bright and fresh, like a, it's like a ballerina in your mouth at the end. and it really makes your mouth water. So you've got this, yeah, bright and fresh, but smooth and silky. One sip has made me incredibly hungry. And yeah, bring on the seafood, absolutely. And it's just, it's got the grapefruit, little twist of orange, little twist of lime. It's just absolutely delicious. There's floral notes still in there as well, but that saltiness, that minerality, and that hard, yeah, grapefruit is the dominant character on the palate, I think. That little bit of peach and apricot isn't there. That was on the nose. It's very Moorish. This is a very me wine. I've had so many good Albariños recently. Really good, actually. I'm just going to give you the names of two, which I think are brilliant and good value too, which is often a good thing. This one from Waitrose. And this one also from Waitrose. Ah, okay. Those are both brilliant, those wines. Glasses are usually refillable. That's true. Good point. Well made. Gosh, I like that. And it's long. The finish is really long. And it's sort of poised and elegant and refreshing. And you could, you know, I've given up with the Coravan. I just open them and the longer I've got, oh well, yeah, the longer I've got it here, the more sort of delicately smoky and sort of ashy those lees are on the nose as well. Lees can often give a very good impression of light oak, and it's sort of doing it here on the nose. Yeah, I'd like to say I'm not capable of finishing a bottle of wine on my own, but I am. And during lockdown, I really discovered that I was. Did either of you in lockdown? One day I said, in the early days, our youngest son was still living with us, and one Tuesday I just said at lunchtime, "Should we have a glass of wine with it?" And it was downhill from there. Put on about 12 stone as a consequence. But I do have a lot of wine to get through in my defence. Now, this is, you don't have to read everything on here. The slides in this one are too wordy. I keep meaning to remove the words, but I haven't had time. That's the sort of food I would drink with this. Seafood and light fish, sea bass, sea bream, not a heavy fish. I want a weightier wine with that. Scallops are everywhere in Santiago and the surrounding countryside. I was in a bar in the main street in Santiago, and they had this wonderful looking, it was a scallop shell with a couple of seared scallops in it and a huge prawn. And I ordered one of those and a glass of Albarino, and they brought this thing up to me, and I took one mouthful and grabbed the waiter's arm and said, I'll have another one of those. It was so good. And then I came back later and had a plate of these as well, and another glass of, well, two of Albarino. So yeah, there's very little oak used in Rías Baixas. A few people at the top end make a small amount of a top cuvee with some oak, but it's not the normal thing, okay? Those would be very expensive wines, and you'd know about it. So basically, they're all made in stainless steel. I'm sure people are experimenting with eggs and things like that as well, concrete eggs and wooden eggs, probably experimenting with aging them under the sea as well. It's that sort of wine, but it's all about being light and fresh. There are a few fizzy ones. Rías Baixas Espumoso. They cannot be called cava because Albarino is not a permitted cava grape, but they're very good. Mar del Frades is, did I put it there? No, I ought to put that there. Mar, let's just check I've got the spelling right. I will answer your question. Ah, yeah, there we are. Yeah. Mar de Frades. That's a very good Albarino, Mar de Frades. It's in a blue bottle, and they make a sparkling one as well, which is very good. Top notch they are. They do use international grapes. They use quite a lot of Chardonnay, particularly in Navarra and Aragon, and a fair amount of Sauvignon Blanc dotted around as well. I wish they wouldn't, because they've got great grapes of their own, but you know, they do like to do that sort of thing. Here's a few other producers for you. Terras Gauda. Now this one is the Rolls-Royce, Palacio de Fefiananes, Pazo de Sanyoran, Santiago Ruiz, who I've already mentioned, As Laxus, Condes de Albarai, and Filiboa. Very good. There's lots of others, including the two I've given you there, or three with Mar de Frades. Okay. Any questions about Albarino? Oh, I've just realized there is something else to tell you about Albarino. One of the most exciting Albarinos I've had of late is from New Zealand. There's quite a bit of international Albarino, and they're very good. So it's sort of breaking out from its Spanish ghetto. Of course, it's also made in Portugal, but there's French Albarino, Waitrose do one. There's a fair amount of New Zealand Albarino, Waitrose do one of those as well. The one I had was from Esk Valley in Hawke's Bay, New Zealand. And boy, was it good. You can get, what's happened there? You can get German Albarino, South African, Californian, Virginian, Chile, Uruguay, Argentina, German, did I say that? and South African and Australian and English. There are 3 English Albarino's. So it's a very exciting time for Albarino lovers. Yes, but really hard to buy because the production is so small. Chapel Down make 3 different versions, and it's almost impossible to get. I've had one taste once, and it was very good. Okay, so I shall now just tell you a little bit about some of the other areas before we come to our red. Ribeiro is the oldest wine region in Galicia as far as being a DO is concerned, which is strange because it's not often seen nowadays, but the wines are very good. Most of the production is very, very small estates. So really the only people who have wine left over to sell are the cooperatives. So you do sometimes see some very good value Ribeiro wines around. I'm a big fan. It's as you might imagine, overwhelmingly white because it's not far inland at all. It's near Ourense, which is a lovely town. And indeed Ribadavia, the principal town of the DO, is lovely as well. And the Minho River cuts right through. It's very beautiful. Yeah. I took that photograph. It's lovely. It's really a lovely place. You can see how green it is. And I'm going to drink this. It's good. It's drier than Rias Baixas because it's that little bit inland, slightly sheltered. So the wines tend to be a little bit weightier. In my mind, I've always really loved them more than Albarino. But when I went to Santiago for the first time, I compared the two in some bars, and the Albarinos were better wines, it has to be said. But the blends, there's great Ribeiro as well. And the blends tend to be based on Treixadura, and then you can have Torrontés, Godello, Luraira, Albarino, and Lardo in them as well. A little bit of red that isn't as exciting as the whites. Okay. If you're there, you can get a sweet wine called Tostado Ribeiro, made from dried grapes. I like that a lot, but you don't. It's very rare. It's very rare. Show you a bit more of the countryside and show you a few producers. They are pretty pictures of the countryside. And here you are. Here's a few producers for you. You've got Mauro Esteves, Viña Mine, and Coto de Gomarez. They're brilliant wines. If you get a chance, try them. Lovely countryside too. And Ourense is a wonderful town. Really good. Torrontés, indeed. Torrontés is quite interesting. There are no grapes are indigenous to Argentina. All grapes were imported into Argentina by the Spanish. And the Argentinian Torrontés, the most famous Torrontés, the international one, is a natural cross, an accidental cross of Criolla, which is País or Mission in Argentina, which is it's the descendant from the original black grape, the Palomino Negra, that the Spanish took with them, and Muscatel. Okay, that's why it's got that muscaty nose to it, Torrontés. Torrontés in Spain, I think I'm right, that there are 5 Torrontés grapes in Spain, but they're not related to each other, and they're not related to the Argentinian Torrontés either. So it's just a name that's used quite widely for local grapes in different parts of Spain. And presumably that's why it was given that name in Argentina as well. So you do see Torrontes around, particularly in Ribeiro. But it's not what you think of Torrontes. Okay. Oh, that wine just gets better and better and better. There we are. Now, Monterey, the King's Mountain. Let's see, I've got a photograph for you. Very mountainous area and deep inland and on the Portuguese border. There it is, Monterey. It's a great place. Bizarrely, it has a very slight Mediterranean influence. It's a bit drier still than Ribeiro, and it's the hottest sub-region of Galicia in the summer, but the coldest one in winter. Okay. Reasonable elevation. You're getting a bit more varied soils. You're beginning to get, you've got the sand and the granite, which we saw in Rio Spacious, but you're getting a bit of slate here too, which of course you get down here in the Douro in Portugal. Okay. And because it's that bit warmer and protected, the amount of red produced is coming up. Oh yes, vineyards by rivers. It's a big thing in Galicia. Coming to that later. So much more red. So we'll go there first. Mostly the grape is Mencía, but they also use the Merenthal, which is called Trousseau in France and Bastardo in Portugal. And Tempranillo is also permitted. I've only had about 2 reds from here because it's the whites that people want. And in particular, the Godello grape. Godello is much more textured than Albarino. It's less mineral, but the wines here can often be blends as well, although most of them are pure Godellos. But you can get Treixadera, Dona Branca, and indeed Albarino. They're lovely wines, perhaps not as well known as they ought to be. Usually quite small estates and or cooperatives. By the way, estates in Galician are adegas rather than bodegas. And again, a lot of the vineyards are supported high up on these stone pillars. That is the Monterey itself, the King's Mountain with a castle on top. I would recommend these 2 producers, Pathos del Rey and Lagar de Festosa. Nice wines and should be more widely seen. But production is quite small in some of these places. Now, a bit of a change of scene. We are going to the most easterly bit of Galicia. And this is a region called Valdeorras, or a DO called Valdeorras, the Valley of Gold. And there it is. And it's quite sheltered. You get a little bit of continental and Mediterranean influence in there. And so it's a little bit warmer, a little bit more reliable weather. And so it produces a little bit more red wine still, 45% red and 55% white. And you've got slate soils, pure slate soils, slate and schist. Schist is decayed slate, okay? And the whites are made almost exclusively from pure Godello, and the reds are made from pure Mencía as well. I love it here. And by the way, when we come to neighboring Castilla y Leon, we'll talk about a little region in here called Bierzo. And Bierzo is almost identical to Valdeorras. And back in the mists of time, before 1743, which in Spain is just after lunch, they were the same region. But then somebody put a political border through them for some reason. Don't know why. And it gets its name from here. This is some of the vineyards of the area, and the Sil river that flows through, SIL, the Sil. And the area's got this amazing landscape called Las Medulas. And this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And what you're looking at there is an ancient Roman gold mine, hence Valdeorras. And for the entire existence of the Roman occupation of the Iberian Peninsula, which was 1,000 years or so, perhaps a bit less, but not much less, this was the most important gold mine to Rome. And so it would have been a very, very busy landscape. And so it was done through undermining. We use that word now to mean that you do something down. But of course, what you did was mine under it so that it collapsed, hence the term. And so you've got this amazing landscape, which is beautiful to see. And they do concerts and things here as well, because it's got really good acoustics. Pliny, one of the Plinys, wrote a very detailed description about it. And it would have all been slave labor, of course, with a big Roman garrison there as well. So one can only assume that they made wine in the area for both the garrison and the slaves. It's an amazing place. And that's where the name comes from. These Godello white wines will have more succulence than the Albarino, and they'll have a little bit more weight to them as well, on the whole. Okay. All of which I think, all of which brings us to our last wine region, sadly. But it's a cracker. Oh, I've got some producers for you for Valdeorras. There we are. And the really important ones are Pagos del Galir, really nice wines. That's owned by Cune, a Rioja producer. Guitian. And Guitian are fantastic. They rescued Godello. Under Franco, farmers were paid by volume, not quality. And this is true of all fascist regimes and indeed communist regimes as well. And so the good grapes, when they were replaced, were usually replaced with a grape that gave a high crop rather than a good quality crop. And it reached the point in the mid to late 80s where Godello had almost gone extinct. Only 7 people had it left, and only one of them was making a commercial release, and that was Guitian. And they're beautiful wines. Rather ironically, given what the fascists did to Godello grape, the label looks like something out of a fascist rally from the 1930s. It's beautiful, really beautiful. Anyway, I recommend them to you. Rafael Palacios is one of the top producers of Spain. Great wines. Valdesil, Gabo de Zil are brilliant too, as are Bodegas Abancia. So try all of those. You won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointed at all. So now we're moving to our red. Red wines, very much the exception in Galicia, but I've noticed in the last 10 years they're really finding their feet and learning how to make good red wines out of the grape varieties that they can ripen, and that is really chiefly Mencía. And I mentioned Bierzo earlier. That's its home, which is now here in Castilla y León. But it also makes wines in Valdeorras and Ribeira Sacra. Okay, and in Portugal they call it Jaén, but they don't do anything so interesting with it. And this is the secret. It's an early ripening grape. You can't have a late ripening grape in Galicia. It just wouldn't work. Okay, and you get high acid, light to medium bodied, and soft tannins. And because it's a light wine, you have to be very careful with the oak. So very few people give it a full-on oak treatment like you normally get in Spain. But a little bit done well gives you the complexity that you want. And so unoaked versions are very cherry and bright red fruit sort of character with high acid. Think nice Beaujolais. Whereas the oaked versions go more like Cabernet Franc. Okay, so the weighty red wines of the Loire Valley, that sort of thing. And indeed, some people did think it was related to Cabernet Franc, but I think that's gone as an idea now. So we have got one of the best estates to show you, and this is Dominio do Bibay, and this wine is their La Lama, which I have always liked. It's a new estate, only been around since 2001, but they came in wanting to make really great wine. And look at that vineyard. Look at it. It's just incredible. You get these incredibly steep slopes down to the river Minho and some of its tributaries, but principally the Minho. But the Sill as well, actually. So you got the Minho like that and the Sill like that when you look at the map. I'll show you. Yeah, so that's the Minho, and that's the Sill. So they're the main ones, and then there's a few tributaries off both. Yeah, it is a stunning view. And the name of the region is Ribeira Sacra, because let's see. Got details here. Yeah, it's named after. There we are. It means sacred riverbank, Ribeira Sacra, and there's 18 monasteries built along the river valleys, and the monks at those monasteries are the people who maintain wine production there. There was no commercial wine producing here at all until relatively recently, and some of the vineyards can only be tended by going to them by boat. They are so inaccessible. Yes, you must. You must. Slate soils and granite soils. So we're coming back towards the west. So the granite's coming back in here. And this is the one bit of Galicia that's overwhelmingly red wine. 94% red wine and only 6% white. So the reds are principally Mencia, and this wine is a case in point. It's 90% Mencia with 7% Brantheo, that one there, a little bit of 1% Sousson or Sousseau, it's the same grape, and it's actually got a little bit of Garnacha in it as well, which helps give good colour. Okay, and the whites here are usually Godello, but you can do blends of Albarino, Loreiro, Traiçadora, and Torrontés as well. Okay. The vineyards are reasonably high for Europe, not ridiculously high, but they do cascade down the hills towards those towards the river. I'll show you a few more views of it. Well, let's taste our wine first. So, Dominio do Bibai have this very modern winery. If you look at the label, you can see it's built in. That's a picture of it. It's built into the hillside at different levels, and it's a gravity feed winery down the hill. It's rather wonderful. Now, that is a deep colour for a Galician red wine. That's sort of deep, really, isn't it? You can't see through it. And it's got that lovely, bright purple, sort of blackcurrant sorbet, Ribena colour to it. It looks great. But very different from the sort of bricky red wines we're used to from Spain. And you stick your nose in there. Yeah, interesting. Isn't that great? It's got a whoosh of, I would say, blackcurrant coulis, fruits of the forest coulis, fresh black currants, fresh blackberries, fresh raspberries, little touch of white pepper, some herbal notes, sort of sniffing wild herbs, rosemary and thyme, lavender, and perhaps just a little bit of white pepper and ginger on the nose as well. So this is fermented in stainless steel, although they do have some, they do a little of it in wooden vats as well. So it's the two together. Yeah, gravity flow. Well, there you are. It's the future. It's easier here because they've got a mountain. Mind you, most Majorcan vineyards are in the mountains as well. So, and to get that good colour, they punch down the cap of skins into the juice to give good extraction. So you get a good colour from it. And it then spent 12 months in used French oak. So not too much oak character coming through. There's a whisper of vanilla and a whisper of coffee just around the edges. So then give it a taste. Isn't that lovely? It's sort of bright and serious at the same time. Lovely silky texture, those herbs, that little touch of spice really follows through. Yeah, very velvety. And that sense of velvetiness is actually slightly reinforced by the little touch of tannins around the edge of your mouth and your tongue. And lovely length to it as well. Lovely weight, mid-weight red wine with just brimming over with red fruit and some black fruit flavors as well. No, not too much tannin at all. Just a lovely little nibble around your senses. Yeah, it's glorious wine, I think. So very, very different from our mental picture of what Spanish wines are about. And that's what makes them so interesting, I think, and lovely. Great with all sorts of things, and becoming much, much more popular than they used to be. So the three areas that make very similar wines, you've got Ribeira Sacra, Valdeorras, and Bierzo, even though Bierzo is not technically in Galicia. Okay. And the producers to look out for, amongst many others, are Adega Quentin, who make Peça do Rei, Adega Algueria, the one we've just had, Dominio de Uruguay, Guimaro, and Raúl Pérez. All make brilliant wines. Really lovely. Sadly, I have never been to Ribeira Sacra. I would like to very much. Looks quite frightening country to walk around. So there we are. We've looked at green Spain, folks. Cheers. Salud. Dinero y amor. Ain't that the truth? We could start in San Sebastian and end up in Santiago. That would be good, wouldn't it? That would be good. Just as long as we don't have to go in Jimmy's camper van. He's probably here. Is he here? No, he's not. Why? What happens if Johnny organises things? Oh, come on. You can't do that. You got to tell me now. I won't tease him, honest. It's funny. Johnny always seems superficially to be a really organised person, but I've heard it from so many people that he isn't. But he's very nice, so it doesn't matter. He is lovely. He's good fun. So you'll see as we go through, I love all of Spain and I love all its variety. This area that we've done tonight is very much... Oh, did he ride his bike out there? So many times. We've got a friend who just loses phones all the time. He keeps his phone in his back pocket of his trousers. And surprise, surprise, it just drops out everywhere he goes. 1 month, he dropped 2 phones in the sea in a single month. And he leaves them on trains abroad all the time. I sometimes go on a train with him. And the first thing he does is take his phone out of his pocket and put it on the seat next to him. And then wonders why he's lost it. It's very strange. Very strange. He and his son were travelling up the coast of Norway on a coach, and the coach went onto a ferry to cross a fjord, and he thought it'd be a good idea to stand up on the deck and watch the ferry dock. So they were standing watching the ferry come in and dock at the port, and they were standing there watching the world go by, only to see their coach drive off the ferry and drive off with all their luggage, and in his case his wallet and passport on as well. I know. It's hilarious, isn't it? I must introduce them, mustn't I? Which wine had the edge tonight? Yeah, I'm with you. I like them both very much, but yeah, the Albarino's got such elegance. No, they both got elegance to it, but it's anyway. Oh, Menthea, oh, good, excellent. So everyone liked them all, really? Do. It's I think the Lagar one's better, but it is more expensive, and the other one's brilliant for the price. Keep an eye out. They often take. Not long ago, they took a third off. So good, excellent. Well, shall we do it again next week, or have you had enough of me? Okay, let's do that then. Next week is Castilla y León, so a lot of good things there. What wines? Hang on, don't go away. I'll go and check. So we have a red and a white. We have the Duquesa de Valladolid, Rueda. And then we have the Marqués de Burgos, Ribera del Duero. There we are. So we've got two different. We've got the Duchess of Valladolid, Rueda, and the Marquis of Burgos, red. Okay. So we aristocrats are us next week. Good. Excellent. Well. Oh, she lives in Granada. Oh, well. My pronunciation's all right. It's everything else that isn't so good. My Galician pronunciation is not good, but my Castellano pronunciation is pretty good. Should she live in Granada City? Oh, okay. How nice. I like Granada. There's some very interesting wines down there, but not exactly mainstream. See if she's read South of Granada, which is an amazing book written by someone in the 20s, 1924, and he spent 2 or 3 years living in a little village south of Granada in the Alpujarras, trying to get over the First World War. And it's just a journal of how he lived. And it's not like modern Spain at all. Not at all. South of Granada. It's a very, very interesting book. Okay. Right. Well, I shall love you and leave you. Oh, someone's typing. Oh, pleasure. It was great to speak to you. And I'm going to go and have some dinner now and finish my wines. Okay. Hasta luego.